In 2020, I watched a Fortune 100 CEO rehearse a board presentation. 47 slides. Every slide was packed with data that supported his strategy. His logic was airtight, his preparation was extensive. He lost the room by slide 6. Not because his strategy was wrong, not because his data was weak, because he had built a deck that answered his question instead of their question. And that single error is what we need to talk about today. I'm Keith, and I've spent 8 years inside newsrooms, on stages, and in boardrooms learning how communication actually works. Not in theory, but under pressure, on deadline, in front of audiences who had every reason to tune out. I worked with an executive at Foreign Affairs where I had to make geopolitical complexity land for readers who were brilliant but had no patience for jargon. I worked with a writer at The Hill, writing scripts for political video that had to hold attention in one of the most contested media environments on the planet. I worked with a medical doctor where I had to take the most complex medical stories in the world and make them clear, compelling, and accurate in under 3 minutes. I tell you this not to impress you, but to make a specific point. Everything I'm about to teach you in this series comes from the pressure of real rooms, real audiences, and real consequences. This is not theory, this is craft. Over the past year, I've received a number of requests from Fortune 500 executives and a leading scientist asking for the same thing. Help me build a slide deck that works and help me deliver it in a way that moves people. This series is my answer. 10 videos, a complete framework. Let's begin with the error that makes everything else irrelevant. Here is what almost every CEO and every scientist does when they start building a presentation. They open PowerPoint or Keynote or Google Slides and they ask themselves this: what do I need to say? That question is the root of nearly every failed presentation I have ever witnessed. It feels like the right question. You have expertise, you have data, you have a conclusion you've reached through months or years of work. So naturally, you think the presentation is about transferring that expertise from your mind to theirs. It is not. A presentation is not a transfer of information. If it were, you could send an email. You could send a memo. You could send the slide deck itself and never stand up in front of anyone. A presentation is an act of persuasion inside a moment. You have been given a finite window of living, breathing human attention. 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. And your job is not to say everything you know. Your job is to change something in the minds of the people in that room. A belief, a priority, a decision, a willingness to act. The question is not, what do I need to say? The question is, what does this audience need to think, feel, or decide differently by the time I'm done? And what is the minimum viable argument that gets them there? Let me say that phrase again, because it is the foundation of everything in this series. The minimum viable argument. Not the comprehensive argument, not the exhaustive argument, the minimum viable one. This is counterintuitive for experts. If you're a CEO, you've spent quarters building a strategic case, and it feels irresponsible to leave parts of it out. If you're a scientist, you've spent years on methodology, and it feels intellectually dishonest to gloss over it. I understand that instinct. I respect it. And I'm telling you, it is the single biggest reason why your presentations underperform. Let me illustrate this with a concept from cognitive psychology called the curse of knowledge. It was named by economists Kammerer, Loewenstein, and Weber in 1989. It describes a brutal reality. Once you know something, you cannot accurately simulate what it is like to not know it. When you have spent 6 months living inside a strategic problem, Your brain has built a dense web of context, nuance, and interconnection around that problem. Every data point connects to other data points. Every conclusion rests on layers of reasoning you have internalized so deeply they feel obvious. Your audience does not have that web. They are walking into your presentation with a completely different mental architecture. They have their own priorities, their own anxieties, their own cognitive load from the meeting they just left. And you have somewhere between 90 seconds and 3 minutes to earn their decision to actually pay attention to you rather than merely be physically present while mentally elsewhere. This is not a problem of intelligence. Your board members are brilliant. Your funding committee is brilliant. The problem is not that they can't understand. It's that you have not built them a bridge from where they are to where you need them to be. Let me give you a concrete example. I once worked with a chief science officer preparing a presentation to her company's board about a drug pipeline decision. Her first draft was 32 slides. It began with the molecular mechanism of action, moved through phase 1 and phase 2 data in granular detail, discussed the statistical methodology, and concluded with a recommendation. From her perspective, this was rigorous and responsible. From the board's perspective, it was impenetrable. They needed to make a go or no go investment decision. They needed to understand 3 things. A, does this drug work? B, is it safe? And C, what's the financial case for advancing it? Everything else was evidence in service of those 3 questions, not independent content that deserved its own real estate. No, we rebuilt the deck around those 3 questions. The molecular mechanism became a single slide with an analogy. The clinical data became a story of patient outcomes supported by 2 key data visualizations. The statistical methodology became 1 sentence. These results were statistically significant at the p less than 0.01 level, which exceeds the threshold for advancement. The recommendation became clear, direct, and actionable. She went from 32 slides to 14. The board approved the drug pipeline advancement in under 30 minutes and told her it was the clearest science presentation they had ever received. She didn't dumb anything down. She clarified there is an enormous difference. Before you open your slide software, before you think about design or fonts or animations or how many slides, I want you to do something that will feel almost painfully simple. I want you to write 1 sentence. 1 sentence that completes this phrase. After my presentation, the audience will dash. Not the audience will understand my strategy. That is too vague. Not the audience will know about our research. That is not an outcome. That is a topic. Something like, after my presentation, the board will approve the Q3 reallocation of $40 million from the legacy business to the digital platform. Or, after my presentation, the grant committee will rank our proposal in their top 3. Or, after my presentation, the leadership team will commit to a 6-month pilot of the new operating model. This is your presentation objective. It is the North Star for every decision you make from this point forward. Every slide you build, every word you script, every example you choose, every data point you include must serve this sentence. If a slide does not serve this sentence, it does not belong in your deck. No matter how interesting it is, no matter how much work went into it, no matter how proud you are of it. I learned this discipline at Bloomberg. When you have 90 seconds to explain a market-moving event to a global audience, you learn very quickly that the only question that matters is, what does the audience need to understand, and what is the fastest, clearest path to that understanding? Everything else is noise, and in high-stakes live presentations, noise is not just unhelpful. it is actively destructive, because every second of noise is a second in which you are losing the room's attention, trust, and goodwill. So here is your assignment before the next video. Take your next upcoming presentation, the real one, the one on your calendar, and write that one sentence. After my presentation, the audience will dash. Then look at your current slide deck and ask honestly, how many of your slides directly serve that sentence? I suspect the answer will be uncomfortable. That discomfort is the beginning of transformation. In the next video, we are going to talk about the architecture of a slide deck. Not what your slides should look like, but how they should be structured as an argument. Because a great presentation is not a collection of good slides. It is a single, coherent argument that happens to be distributed across slides. And most people have never been taught the difference. If you're a CEO or senior leader preparing a board presentation, a keynote, or any high-stakes live communication, or if you're a scientist preparing to present to a funding body, a conference, or a public audience, and you don't just want the principles but want me to build your deck with you and coach your delivery personally, I do this on a selective one-on-one basis. You can find the details in the first comment below. I offer two services: a full slide deck build, where I work with you from message strategy through final design, and a presentation delivery coaching engagement, where I prepare you to command the room. Both are built on the same framework I'm teaching in this series, but customized to your specific audience, your specific stakes, and your specific voice. Link is in the comment. I'll see you in the next one.